All right, Brendan. So yesterday I interviewed a guy, a CEO, and he did it from a hammock. So that is by far the most surreal one that I've done so far. This one you're actually doing from a client's location, which we'll get into. But the same question I start all these off with: tell me what your franchise story is. How do you even fall into franchising as a part of your business story?
Sure. So I started franchising almost 20 years ago, and I had a decent amount of real estate background and a decent amount of construction background. I was doing a lot of fix and flips in the Denver market on the residential side of things. And a friend at the time was the founder and was running a franchise concept called the Spicy Pickle, based out of Denver. And they had, I think, 7 locations at the time. He needed a real estate and construction guy. I jumped in, and as is the case with any startup franchise, ended up wearing a lot of different hats, including marketing, supply. We were doing a little bit of everything. I was sampling food, sampling breads, as well as managing the real estate and construction. So that's how it started, and here we are, almost 20 years later.
When you fall into this industry, like what was your perception of franchising, or maybe what was something that surprised you as you started realizing how it would actually works?
I think what surprised me was just how different each franchisee for every concept that I've ever worked with. It still to this day, it surprises me. Everybody comes with a different set of background, different experience level, and working with so many different shapes and sizes of franchise owners across the board is, like I said, still to this day has been something that catches me off guard, but it also makes it extremely fun and makes every day a little bit different, and certainly makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately one of the beauties of franchising. If you take the founders have a lot of similarities. Like they all have to be a little bit crazy because most entrepreneurs are. So you can put that all in the bucket. And then
Yeah.
a franchisee is entrepreneurial. They're buying a business in a box that they have to follow. There's things that they cannot divert from. And so it's a different mindset, but it opens up such widespread possibility for so many different types of human beings to get involved in business. So awesome that that's your viewpoint. So before I dive deeper into the next question, I want you to frame what your business is, because I think that starts guiding the pathway of where our conversation will go.
Sure. So at redC Business Advocacy, basically what we do is I started the concept 8 years ago, and really the idea was to be able to provide in-house level support in kind of all of the growth categories as a third party. So really kind of ingrain ourselves with our clients as part of the brand, as part of the culture that's the founders and the operators there and the headquarters side of things have created, and to provide that same level of support. Our bread and butter is really on the real estate design and construction, but provide all of that support as a third party, but in-house, whether as the department itself or as an ancillary arm to an existing department.
So on the real estate design construction side, are you making a founder's concept come to reality? Are you taking an existing business and tweaking it so that it can be leveled up to today's time? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above. We're basically a growth concept. We take those founders, their goals and their passion towards growing their brand, and work with their franchisees, kind of like I said, from the inside out, helping them secure real estate, putting together the best design possible, and then making sure that we're hitting the construction goals of schedules and budgets.
So in today's franchise restaurant build out world, sold not open is continuing to climb, and part of that is the way that we sell franchises. We're trying to sell them in 3-packs. If you went back 10 years ago, 3-packs was not a statement that was used. Now it's absolutely a universal statement in franchise. So what happens is, even if franchisee X can get unit 1 open, the pathway to 3 seems very, very daunting because real estate selection is very, very tight. Now, the perception of many, especially our clients, was COVID hit. This is going to loosen up the marketplace a little bit. And it may have for 5 seconds, but it's still pretty tight, even though the availability of office space is high. That doesn't necessarily mean the prime real estate for a brand. So I would imagine it's not overly challenging for you to have a sell to a brand, but then you have to figure out how are we going to go execute against actually finding the boxes.
Yeah, exactly right. And you hit the nail on the head. You know, there's a bit of a logjam with any brick and mortar concept right now on the front end with those sold not opens. And the availability of good real estate is lack thereof. And so, you know, I think one of the unique kind of offerings that redC brings to the table is that because we're working with multiple brands, and because we've got such an extensive network of real estate brokers, landlord reps, you know, coast to coast, we kind of get the opportunity to dangle that larger carrot and be able to put our clients in front of these landlord reps, landlords, you know, the folks that are making the big real estate decisions, and get them kind of top of the pick, knowing that, you know, if one brand doesn't work out for one reason or the other, we've got, you know, 4 or 5 other brands that we're representing that could fill that space, and fill their other spaces, you know. So this is, I guess, giving our clients the opportunity to kind of be kind of the pick of the litter, so to speak.
As much as it excited you, the difference in franchisees, does it turn into a pain in the ass too? Because some are very cheap on, even though you're like, I've done this time and time again, this is where you need to go. Like, yeah, but the square footage is a little bit cheaper at this one, or I'm getting more TI at this one.
Yeah.
Like, when they become an expert, is that frustrating for you?
Yeah, it certainly can be. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, the overall franchising process, every step of the way is a sales process. And I don't mean sales in a slimy kind of used car salesman type of way, but, you know, ultimately, you know, my team and I have collectively done over 1,000 openings. So we've seen a lot. Can't say that we've seen it all because I'm still learning. But that experience allows us to work with our clients and their franchisees down a path towards a decision that makes best sense for the brand, a decision that we've seen makes sense for past brands that we've worked with, for current brands that we've worked with, and the franchisees alike. And ultimately, at the end of that road, the franchisee is going to make the decision. And if we've done our job correctly, then at the end of that road, they're going to make the decision that is best for their brand and the best for themselves and setting themselves up for success. And if we failed at our job, then, you know, at the end of that road, they're going to make maybe a wrong decision. And then I got to take a strong look at myself and figure out how we make sure we do better the next time and put these franchisees in the best position to, you know, get to their return on investment, which starts when they open the doors for business. Everything before then is kind of up for us to make sure we're getting nailed down.
Out of curiosity, how much vetting goes against the landlord today with the question, how did you behave during COVID? And the reason I ask that, I have plenty of clients that will say, my landlord stepped up to the plate and really helped us out a lot. And then I could tell you, my landlord on our 50-person office and $35,000 a month rent, when we said anything you can do, you go, absolutely not. So I know both sides of the story.
Yeah.
Is that a question when you're looking at the landlord now, that maybe the vetting of the landlord is happening today that it wasn't happening before in real estate selection?
To a certain degree, you know, I always talk about real estate being the real estate decision and overall process being similar to a bicycle wheel. You know, there's 160 different spokes on a bicycle wheel, and each one of those spokes contributes to the wheel rolling down the road, effectively and uniformly. And the real estate decision is kind of part of that. I see the relationship with the landlord as one of those spokes, along with the real estate data analytics, along with what you know about the ins and outs of the market, what the franchisee knows about the ins and out of the market, and countless of other attributes. But to specifically speak to the landlords, I'm a firm believer also that how things start are how they end. And if we're working through a negotiation and landlords not being working in a professional manner or difficult to get hold of, or just being difficult in general, then that's going to be how the relationship's going to transpire throughout the term of the lease, whether it's a 10-year lease or beyond. That idea that how things start or how they finish comes to fruition more often than not. So it's part of the decision-making process. If we're having a tough time with the landlord, and maybe everything else is a perfect fit, let's take another look at this and re-examine whether or not this is a relationship we want to get into.
It's probably tough with a franchisee because there's so much emotion involved too, that even if you have a bad landlord based on your institutional knowledge, but they're in love with the space, they might overlook some of that and still go forward. But it adds another component or element of risk to their business as if things go south.
Yep, you're exactly right.
What if you're talking to a novice? What annoys you about the process that someone's like, I could do this on my own, or you're like, but you could negotiate X. Like, is there something that's personal guarantees? Is there something that stands out that is just a consistent miss by those that try to go at it on their own?
Yeah, so I think everybody's looking for that silver bullet for a successful construction build out. And without question, the closest thing that I've come to finding that is that silver bullet is everything that happens in the real estate side of things. If we don't get the site selection part of it right, then there's no way that we can get the construction part of it right. And what I mean by that is obviously there's a location qualification of a space, making sure you've got the right demographics, making sure you've got the right density, right traffic flows, those sorts of things. Above and beyond that, once you've been able to qualify a space from that level, then it's a matter of qualifying the space from an existing conditions level. A landlord work level. What kind of work is the landlord going to provide prior to turning the space over to the franchisee? And then beyond that, what type of tenant improvement allowance and or what type of concession are we going to get from the landlord? And that's where I see a miss more often than not. Every bit of that equation, landlord existing conditions, landlord work plus tenant improvement allowance has to equal fair, or at least close to fair, because it's going to always favor the landlords. But that's a piece that I see more often than not. People forget. People, think that it's a great space. Well, let's sign it and get the deal done. What they fail to realize is that because of those existing conditions, we might blow our budget just bringing the space up to snuff before we can turn it into whatever concept it is that we're working with. So that'd be my biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, if I think through my own experience when it comes to commercial real estate, and I'll paint this in the eyes of a franchisor or a chain business. If you try skipping over this, this is the pathway you go down. I went from use Craigslist to sign my first location. Loved it. Right next to a strip club in Atlanta. Maybe not the safest part of town, but I like the space.
Yeah.
Next one, used our residential real estate agent to secure our first office building in Chicago. That ends up being somewhat of a mistake on negotiation. And then on the last run, we go with CBRE and we go through the right track to do it and end up having the best situation out of everything else. So part of it is entry-level businesses, especially founder-run businesses, need the education of the services that you provide on the front end. I think it's super, super important. I don't think AI disrupts you at all. my perception is it helps you because it can offset some of the analytical data, and it could disrupt the Buxtons of the world. But what's your take on it? Is it an asset for you right now, and does it fill some of your gaps, or does it shorten the pathway for you at all?
We're not utilizing AI other than, on the real estate data analytics side, as you kind of pointed out. I don't see it being much of a disruptor for us. The tangibles of nailing down a space and working that relationship with those landlord reps and with the landlords and with the franchisees. I don't think there's a way to kind of replace that with AI. So it's not something that we're taking too much of a hard look at right now, but certainly something that we want to keep in mind and certainly keep in the forefront of our thoughts as we move forward.
There's a ghost. They're watching this. They haven't given us their name. They haven't given you their name, their franchisor, their business. What do you want them to know about you so that it pushes them to reach out and make the contact?
Sure. Kind of speaking to what kind of got me into this, I'm passionate about real estate. I'm passionate about building things and having kind of a tangible result of, the work that's gone into things. And then I'm passionate about working with people and seeing through their personal goals and achievements. I'm as well as working on the supplier side of things. I'm a franchisee. And that's been one of the biggest eye openers for me throughout this entire 20 years of franchising work. Became a franchisee just over 3 years ago now. And I know what it's like being on the opposite side of the table and staring down a 10-year lease and working with a landlord from that side of the table. And so I feel like I've got compassion for the folks that we're working with. It's a scary proposition. You're excited as you dive into becoming a franchisee. There's a ton of excitement, and then all of a sudden, things slow down tremendously, and that excitement dies because you're now in site selection, and site selection is a tough proposition. Working with landlords is a tough proposition, and nailing down those spaces can take some time. And then you start construction and all you're doing is writing check after check after check. And that is scary. You've just spent a ton of money on the initial franchise fee. You're just writing check after check. You don't have any idea when this thing's going to open and what the register is going to do once you do open. And I think, what we do is we bring a lot of that compassion to what we do for the franchisees and give them the opportunity to, once again, return or focus on that return on investment, which is everything that happens after they've opened the doors for business. Hiring the right ops team, hiring the right, making sure they got the best marketing plan put together, so on and so forth. Our services give them that freedom to focus in on that.
I think what you just said is such a big statement. I would love to see that in one of these sliders on your site. Like the fact that our compassion or empathy for franchisees is higher because we are one. The fact that we're going to put in all the tools right to make the franchisee successful, like all of that talks to the franchisor, because happy franchisees will make more money, and more money means more in royalty. And so I think your message of what you just said is super powerful. I mean, if I bought your business, I'd put that front and center because I think that's part of your why you why now. So
well, thank you.
Yeah, well, Brendan, thanks for the chat. Looking forward to seeing you at Fran Camp. And for Nick, I'm Brendan. This is another episode of Meet the Supplier. Take care, everybody.
Thanks,